In 3, 2, 1. This is the Paracasual Destiny Podcast, live from Los Angeles. Thanks for tuning in to episode 10 of the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. I'm Sooltime, and I'm joined by fellow guardians Salliebug. Salliebug, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And the venerable Greenstego. Good morning. And Greenstego, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and good morning.
We are in full internet communication this morning. It's a beautiful day here. The sun is shining. It's cool and crispy. Real hints of fall on the way up here in northern New England. What's it like where you are, Stego, down in the swamplands?
Oh, here in Central Texas, we did just have a bit of rain recently, and yesterday was a really bad day for allergens. Oh, dust and dander was off the charts. But it's a nice day today. The weather's cooled down a little bit.
All right, cool. That's good to hear. So let's kick off this week's episode with what we've been doing in the world of Destiny or the world of video gaming or even the real world. Salliebug, too, do you want to kick us off here?
Sure. So last weekend, kind of after our podcast, I did get on for a bit. I kind of had a long session. I think it was Sunday. I don't know, either Saturday or Sunday. Anyway, you and I worked together to finish the Traveler's Chosen quest.
Yeah, that's right. We did do that.
And then after because we had done some of it already.
Right.
Working our way up to that. So we finished that last weekend, and then I decided that I would just look in my vault and see if I had any weapons that I had started the Catalyst on but hadn't finished.
Oh, and I forgot about your Catalyst marathon. Bravo.
So I'm going to mute because I'm getting ready to sneeze. Hold on.
She went on, I'll talk for her, which isn't unusual. She actually went, Greenstego, she went on a tear and knocked out a bunch of Catalysts in a relatively short period of time. It was pretty amazing. I'll let her speak for herself if she's done with her respiratory illness. Salliebug?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
So, yeah, I did get a bunch. I got like, I want to say 4 done. But it sounds like a lot, but several of them, at least 3 of them, I think one I might have started from the very beginning. But most of them, like, I had just had and started with and just had never completed. Like, I guess I started working on the Catalyst, but then something else happened, and then I just forgot that it was there and forgot that they were there. And
that's kind of rare for you to get sidetracked with this.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
So, and you dipped your toe into the non-skill based matchmaking Iron Banner.
Notice how she calls it non-skill based, not connection based. Yeah, I did. I dipped my toes in Iron Banner while you were going after Catalysts, and I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking, I love Iron Banner, and I want to finish getting the Komodo quest done, so I had my Arborless out, and it just started off bad, and then it went from bad to worse. And I kind of got a little, salty, if you will, and just turned it off and I haven't picked up Destiny since. So it must have been a bad experience. I looked back last night at my record, and I played 13 games, and I looked at the scores in the game history, and my KD was awful. I was like lucky to get 0.1 KD. But I looked at the games I was in, and I think I only won 3 out of the 13, but 8 out of the 13, which represents around 62% of the games, were called. I'm calling it, where it's just you get in, and then within a few minutes it's 70 to 15, and you're either on the team with the trials dude who's gone flawless 100 times, or he's on the other team. Either way, I found I think the reason what ticked me off was I was making very little progress on those Iron Banner quests as a result. I was, when I was on the superheroes team, he was taking all my kills. And when he was on the other team,
he was still taking all your kills.
Well, he was just.
You're just spending some more time being.
He was killing me. I was spending more time being dead by him. Yeah, and like the games that were called, sometimes I'd get lucky and be sort of the big fish in the little pond, and I was starting to get those Arborless kills, and then I'm calling it. It's like, oh, come on, I was just getting on a roll here, and the game's getting called. So I don't know. It left a bad. I had a bad time, is what happened.
Now, hold on. You said Arborless. Are you going for Komodo?
Yes, the Komodo quest.
The Komodo quest.
But after a little while, I just said, okay, gnawing hunger. Because I felt bad for my team. I felt like, geez, I need to be pulling my weight here. Trying this Arborless thing out all the time is not quite cutting it. But it was really not the Arborless that was the problem, or my poor skills that was the problem. It was connection-based matchmaking, calling. 62% of the games were called on me. That's over half of the games lasted less than a couple of minutes. So I made very little progress given the amount of time that I was putting into it, and it wasn't fun. Just getting in and not seeing a match. There were a few games that were like really good. It was like 125 to 102 or something, and it was a fun, engaging game. When it works, it's great. It's awesome.
Right.
But man, oh man, it was tough.
Well, it's just along with the fact that I feel like because of the state, like where the game is right now, there are fewer people playing it. People are getting busy. College kids are going back to school, either virtually or non-virtually. Teachers are going back to work. And the game itself is in it, like the storyline and all of that is in a bit of a lull. Like a lot of people already have all of the Iron Banner gear that they want.
Which I realized I did, so I was like, why am I really doing this just for a primary fusion rifle?
So the people that are going in there are either farming really good rolls on things, and if you're in that, you're at that stage of the game, you're that high up in the game, I would assume you're also kind of a higher tiered player. But your pool of people who are playing is smaller. So that always does. I think when the pool is smaller, it usually the gap between the highest skilled and the lowest skilled is see that gap even more, because you don't have that.
So I see it. You're getting your butt kicked over in trials, and you figure, I need to go Elo farm over in the Iron Banner. So yeah, I get it. I'm sorry, Greenstego.
Yeah. What I add on is I have noticed that when I am playing Destiny with an objective in mind. When I'm playing with an objective and that's my focus, I tend to get more frustrated a lot faster.
That was definitely part of it. Absolutely.
And so if I'm just dropping into the Crucible with whatever kind of loadout I want, and I just pick up bounties and I play, and then I don't really check on the progress on those things, I just kind of, at the end of the session, just turn in whatever kind of progress happened to have been made, then on those play sessions, I tend to have more fun than when I'm thinking,
right,
oh, I'm trying to get void kills. Oh, I'm trying to get final precision blows with this exotic weapon.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so I think it kind of ties in a little bit to like that watched pot never boils a little bit, because you're constantly like checking on this specific progress, but it also the way that it constrains your gameplay and also changes the way that you're focused. Just like every failure just kind of stings a little bit more, almost like in Gambit, when you die it feels really bad because you lose your motes.
Yeah, especially if you had 15, right? It's like, ouch.
Yeah, exactly. And so I also am really far behind on my catalysts for that reason, because I don't think, I really want to level up this catalyst, so I equip it and I really try to focus on using it, because I don't really play that way, and when I do, I have like it's more common that I won't have as much fun.
Yeah,
but the result is I've got a ton of catalysts that just aren't like have no progress.
Right.
Yeah.
I do not catalyst farm in the Crucible. Obviously, the Crucible and PvP, if nobody knows this at this point in the game, is not my go-to play mode. So, I wouldn't do that. My recent catalyst farming, and I think I mentioned that in a previous podcast, is Altars of Sorrow. Just go in there, and there's always plenty of enemies to kill, especially and I gotta say that there are other catalysts that actually want you to do a very specific thing. Like, for instance, I think the Polaris Lance one says you need to get a kill from explosion kill or something like that.
I think it's from that fourth shot, isn't it?
It's very specific. It's not just the fourth shot, but that fourth shot or fifth shot that explodes the enemy, and that anyone nearby, you need to get a kill from someone nearby or something like that. I can't quite remember what it was. I farmed that in the Castellum.
Yep, I was just going to say, cough, Castellum, cough. Yeah.
We're going to miss the Castellum for sure as a place to farm.
Well, I think our chat actually has the solution to all of Iron Banner's problems. Funny Bone says, "How about a nickel banner? Come on, Bungie! Come on, Bungie! Get that nickel banner going."
Yeah, it's funny because this morning I was just checking out
it's for the little kids.
Media. I was checking out my social media and saw that there was another connection-based versus skill-based matchmaking, and I realized after reading through the comments, because I always get drawn to that argument, had nothing. I think it was either COD or Warzone based. Like they weren't Destiny players at all. So this is just a constant argument that happens within first-person shooter PvP mode game. It's just a constant battle for.
Yeah, I don't play those games,
all of those types.
Yeah.
Greenstego,
Right.
What else have you been up to this past week? Did you get in any gaming, Destiny or otherwise?
I dropped into our Animal Crossing island a couple times this week.
Nice.
Just to check off a couple boxes, cross some T's and dot some I's, but not so much, especially not during the week. But
yeah,
I am looking forward to the latest Magic set dropped on MTG Arena, and so I'll be dropping in there maybe for a little bit this weekend.
Cool.
Nice.
I inadvertently completed the main missions in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. I just picked it up to get in, a little bit of, knock out another mission. It turned out to be the last one in the game. I was like, wow, this is really hard. I wonder it's getting late. I've got to finish this. And it was just like I was like, wait a minute, this is hard enough. I bet you this is the last mission in the game. So I ended up finishing it. And then there was 3 hours worth of credits, at the end of the game, the tradition that I had to sit through. I forced myself to maybe not read all of them, but at least I know some of the names from the Romanian team that did some of the design work on the game. But man, what a great game, and there's still lots to do in it, so I'm not by no means done with it, even though I finished the main storyline. There's still a lot to do.
One other thing that I did do this week was we were on the Xbox doing something else, and our granddaughter noticed that we were on and sent a message and said, "Want to play Destiny?" She's very excited. It's still
that's
very
right.
brand new
Yeah,
to
you
her.
played with C-3PO.
And yeah, so I hopped on and helped her rescue Cade from the Vex, whatever it was, that little Vex trap that he was in.
The Vex spiderweb.
On Nessus. And then she went down to Io for the first time, which was really interesting. That her first experience with Io has that pyramid ship in the background.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting.
Her first and last experience with Io, perhaps.
Yeah, first and last, yeah, exactly.
It's great.
So she's getting it in just under the wire. So it'd be cool if we could, you and I, could help her get through the bulk of those storylines that include those destinations, so that she's experienced them before they go away and get vaulted anyway. It's interesting. I'd like to transition into the lore that we learned about in getting the Travelers Chosen.
That might be spoilers for Greenstego. But I just wanted to say that Fractious Heart says she's been playing Spiritfarer. That sounds like an interesting game. Is it kind of like I bet it's an indie game.
It is.
Yeah.
And I have had the joy of, when I'm taking a break, when I pop out of my home office, I will see Fractious Heart playing Spiritfarer, and the game is just adorable. I adore it instantly. I fall in love with everything that I'm looking at on the screen. The artistic style is phenomenal. The characters that you encounter in that game, you instantly fall in love with. And
is it a platformer?
The mechanics. It functions
Ori-esque?
like a side-scrolling platformer a little, but there are so many different elements. It's definitely not combat-based. It's closer to Animal Crossing in terms of the objectives and the feeling that it goes for, in that it's more just like wholesome.
Life
it's
sim.
mostly life sim, but in like a very fantastical setting.
Oh, cool. You've piqued my interest. I might have to try that one out.
Well,
it's available on Game Pass.
Nice.
We don't have Game Pass, do we, Sooltime?
No, we do not, Salliebug. I need to point this out. Salliebug and Greenstego can't see this. Well, Salliebug, I think you're monitoring the chat, so you might notice that up on the screen I have the NASA image from the Hubble Space Telescope that was taken recently of Jupiter with a little dot off to the left of it, and that happens to be Europa. It's a beautiful thing. It's great if you go online, get the high-res image. You can zoom in and see. You can even see details on Europa, which for a Earth orbit-based telescope is that's insane. Come on, that's a long 460 million miles away. That is insane that you can get detail off of a moon of Jupiter. And of course, Jupiter itself is next to Saturn, my favorite looking gas giant. With that. But I've noticed in my lifetime that the Great Red Spot, as we call it, the storm, is diminishing. It's getting smaller. It used to be bigger when I was a little kid back in the 1820s. It used to be bigger, and it is getting smaller. So
we even have climate change on Jupiter.
Yeah, that's probably what's happening, and I blame the big oil for that. So we were thinking today to commemorate Salliebug's achievement of obtaining all those catalysts, we would talk a little more about exotic weapons in the game. In particular, how you get them and the pool. I think, Salliebug, you have an opinion about the current exotic weapon pool in Destiny. And what are your thoughts on that? You have any big feelings about that?
I don't have super big feelings about it. I just I like the direction that they've gone in with exotic weapons. Specifically, if we look at the exotics that dropped in this season alone, which are Wither Horde, Ruinous Effigy, and now Traveler's Chosen. How far have you gotten on that quest, Sego, if at all?
Yeah.
I have not made the most recent development to obtaining Traveler's Chosen. I've done like the initial quests for the evacuation way back like a month ago, but ever since they updated it like last week or this week or whatever, I don't have Traveler's Chosen.
Okay. So I won't go into a whole lot of detail about it, but I just want to say that those three weapons really do feel exotic and special.
Mm-hmm.
Their exotic perks feel more, I guess a lot of exotics do. A lot of the exotics have these intrinsic exotic perks. But there's other weapons there are other exotic weapons that have like these intrinsic exotic perks, but they don't feel exceptionally exotic to me. Monte Carlo comes to mind is one of those, and I know one of our clan members really loves that gun.
Oh yeah, he does.
And I think it's a great gun. I mean, it's a nice auto rifle, but I would choose Gnawing Hunger over that auto rifle pretty much every day of the week. Even though it doesn't have that, even though Gnawing Hunger doesn't have the same exotic perk that
Salliebug, let me ask you this. What's your favorite exotic weapon at the moment?
The moment?
Yeah, do you have a go-to in this sort of pre-Beyond Light state we find ourselves in?
Anarchy.
Oh, you like the Anarchy, huh?
I think, what I found, and Anarchy is probably, again, and I feel like in that pool of really is exotic and has a very, it's a unique way to take on those tankier boss fights, right? It's in your power weapon slot.
A tanky weapon for tanky bosses. That's how they advertised it.
I mean,
yeah.
I like it. so it does tend to be the one that's in my exotic slot a lot of the time. Now I do, because my last bit of playing, the last few times I've gotten on, I've been actually catalyst farming, so I'm like running through a lot of different exotic weapons. And maybe that's why this is kind of coming to the forefront for me, of like, well, some of these, it's, I'm getting the exotic, perk, and I'm getting the catalyst for it, and it still just doesn't feel like this is a weapon that I'm going to pull out and use a lot of the time. And I guess maybe some of it is just, yeah, they're fun and they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're unique. They have like these, like Colony being one of them. They're unique, and I remember Colony having its day in PvP. But it's not going to be one that it is going to pull out. I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe I need coffee.
It's not one that's going to pull out all the stops. Is that what you're going to say?
It's just not. It's not one that I mean, I'm not going to pull out the Colony over,
Right.
say, Anarchy. And I know Anarchy is a bit of a harder weapon to obtain because it comes from a raid. So if you don't have a raid team or whatever, although it is farmable right now,
Yeah.
but well, let's just say raiding is not a part of the game that you do because you're a solo player and you're not comfortable going to LFG, but all of the reasons that would make it not, it would not make it, obtainable. But the other thing I wanted to mention about exotic weapons, while it's fresh in my brain, and is the way to get them, and how some are like quest based and you go along a quest, but some just kind of drop in your lap, like Tommy's Matchbook and Ariana's Vow and Wither Horde. Those were ones that just kind of came with the season, right? They just dropped with the season. I like the ones that, and I think they all have lore to them, but I like the ones that have a little bit more of a storyline. Like getting Leviathan's Breath was so much fun, which is another weapon that's great, but not gonna pull it out and use over something else. So, and that makes me think maybe they're just too many to choose from.
A glut of exotics, you're saying? The pool is too large?
I certainly wouldn't mind, and maybe we're going to get into the, we've talked a little bit about sunsetting before, but I wouldn't mind some of these exotics, especially some of the older ones.
Yeah.
Getting sunsetted.
Sunsetting exotics. That's a pain point. Can you imagine?
Especially since a lot of people don't like sunsetting in general. But especially if it's not if it's just like something like Monte Carlo that just drops, right? It's just there's not a specific quest that you actually had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That it was just something that drops in the world, or drops, like, I think there's certain exotics that just kind of like drop at the end of a chest from a strike or something. But others that have a very specific path that you have to go through, like, for instance, Traveler's Chosen has a storyline and things that you have to do to get it. So it has a story behind it.
Right. Yeah.
So, but maybe some of the other ones, like, I will say, like in Destiny 1 and probably a good portion of Destiny 2, the Mida multi-tool was like my go-to exotic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then some other legendaries came in the game that definitely took its place. Well, I mean, scout rifles just really aren't in a very good place right now anyway. But it's, I don't know. I wish I had more reason to pull out some of those exotics.
Well, I think if you look earlier back in the chat, you know, they were comparing Jade Rabbit to Randy's and just saying, yeah, the Jade Rabbit needs an injection. That's just kind of sort of my issue with exotics not being exotic. And I find myself not reaching for exotic weapons like I used to, or just, you know, you get more success with legendaries, like you were saying, the gnawing hunger over a lot of exotics in that spot. So I'm going for exotic weapons, and now I think there's a problem with, you know, the new barrier champions and whatnot, and overload champions, where you know, unless you have an exotic that's specific for that, you know, that has that intrinsic perk in it, or gimmick, as Funny Bone would suggest. Yeah, it's more gimmicks than perks, maybe.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that have those intrinsic with them, but your inability to put mods in exotics does limit you, especially when they have certain activities now that kind of require those mods in order to be able to do the activity. And I'm thinking like the higher levels of the ordeal.
You know what I think? You know what I think contributed to the
champions. They
sorry
have the unstoppable champions. They had those champions, and in order to actually, especially anti-barrier, I mean, I think there are certain ways to get around it, but mostly you actually need that mod to put in your gun in order to get past that particular enemy. And not being able to use those mods in an exotic weapon definitely limits your ability to use that weapon, and unless it's intrinsic, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would say that this is all like Bungie trying to bend over backwards in terms of trying to balance some of their power creep issues. That's because they keep wanting to give people new powerful weapons, and they keep like analyzing their situations and thinking that we just have too many problems on our hands. Like, well, for instance, how many times have we cleared Riven? But how many times have we actually done the mechanics for Riven that they painstakingly went through, building this elaborate puzzle to vanquish this high fantasy space dragon, and we just cheese it every time with our powerful weapons.
We do.
I know. A small part of me always feels a little guilty about that. I would I would like to at least attempt it one Saturday, or maybe one vacation when we all don't have anything else to do. Just say, hey, why don't we just give this a go? Let's just see if we can actually do it. It'd be cool. It'd be cool.
Greenstego, I think you're sorry.
There's some things in the chat that I wanted to bring up just before we bypass it. Funny Bone gave an idea, a new tier of an item called actual exotic, orange-colored and reserved exotics that are actually distinct in upper echelon. So, I mean, I guess you could add another tier, but then what do? Do you take away the limitation of being able to use an exotic, and that you only have that limitation on that other echelon? Or I don't know. I mean, it could be a way to kind of deal with the pool of exotics by almost like maybe downgrading some of the existing ones. You could do that, I guess. Take something like Jade Rabbit and Monte Carlo and just make them legendary.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. There wasn't did they do that? I think they did that with and actually I think that gun's coming back in Beyond Light. The gun that we got at the end of the story mission of the end of Vanilla Destiny 1.
Oh, yes, the Stranger's Rifle, which was re-released as the exotic No Time to Explain. No Time to Explain is coming back.
Right, and that gun was originally a legendary, right? We got it at the end of Destiny 1, end of Vanilla Destiny 1 as a legendary weapon, right?
No, it was actually blue. It was a rare gun initially.
Oh, it was blue. Wow.
I think when either during Taken King or during Rise of Iron, it was sometime later, I think retroactively upgraded to a legendary, but I'm pretty sure that it was originally released as a rare weapon. Because by the time you were done with the campaign in Destiny 1, you still weren't really regularly getting legendaries. I'd say that was the end game, was decking out your Guardian with legendary equipment.
Yeah, I think I think that was their original vision, actually, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but Luke Smith has he's at least suggested it, that, you know, getting back to those blues and greens being a more integral part of the game and not just like this level up fodder. I mean, you got to think about people actually put time and effort into those greens and blue weapons, and they have flavor text, they have designs. Excuse me. So
yeah, definitely getting overlooked over there. And while we're still talking about weapons and power level, and there it is, the Stranger's Rifle. The blues are definitely a problem, but something that was mentioned earlier basically was how there are some exotics that feel like they could be kicked down to legendary status because they're on basically a comparable power level to certain pinnacle weapons or ritual weapons. And well, I suppose there's really like two ways to look at that. Is why is it that if the problem is these two different weapons are categorized in different ways, but they still function pretty similarly, you could say, well, why is this exotic weapon exotic? Or you could say, why is this pinnacle weapon feel exotic? And honestly, I don't really have a problem with there being more like intro level exotics. Like during the Red War campaign, and you talk to Sloane, and she gives you your first exotic.
Right.
Well, I think she gives you your exotic armor piece, and then Asher Mir gives you the exotic weapon. But those three exotics, the Risk Runner, the Graviton Lance, and the Sunshot, I'd say those still have like an exotic feel to them, but they definitely don't have the same kind of power level as other exotics. And I think that just like, well, to reference another favorite game of mine, Magic cards, you know, there are a bunch of cards that are rare and there are a bunch of legendary creatures, but they don't all have the same competitive design to them. And I think that there's something to be said for letting players kind of make that kind of judgment call for themselves so that they can practice that kind of evaluation of the weapons to say like, oh wow, the there's something going on with this exotic, the Traveler's Chosen. This is definitely a little bit more powerful than Sunshot. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, because I mean, who here's using Sunshot?
Maybe in what you're saying, what I'm thinking about is maybe this tiered system that they've kind of like intrinsically put in the game by having like this background color. Like this gun has a green-black background, or armor for that matter, but we're mostly talking about weapons right now. This weapon has a blue background. This weapon has a purple background. This weapon has a yellow background. But what if you just didn't have that tiered background, and that you left it a little more open-ended and you could choose whether or not, except for maybe that higher end exotic weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking away the tiered system altogether so that you can choose whether or not this is a weapon. I mean, I guess you could power cap them if just to keep the pool from being way too big, or make that pool smaller with all of these blues and greens, and you making the and purples and deciding which one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's Fractious Heart says Salliebug has lost me with that one. I'm just thinking
it's
that
the cold medicines talking,
which I haven't taken. I should though. I'm thinking that I'm trying to think of a way to inject the green and blue tiered weapons back into the game, and maybe them not having such a distinction of being a level up piece, but more of this is a different type of weapon that you would use in this type of situation. I don't know. Maybe I need another cup of coffee.
Maybe. Funny Bone says some
Maybe.
exotics better than others is fine. I do think the overall problem is just how large the pool is. In the Magic cards analogy, there are often highly utilized uncommons, blue like the blues in Destiny, than commons.
Highly utilized uncommons and commons.
And commons. Okay, yeah.
Sorry. So there are a wide variety of usable cards, and the utility of a card is not necessarily tied 1-to-1 with its rarity, and it would be interesting to see if that could kind of be implemented in Destiny in some way. Maybe if you downgrade one of your weapons, like you use a blue primary, then you could use a second exotic. You could use exotics in both of your other slots or something. I don't know.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add, in addition to the power creep issues that affect how the development and design of exotic weapons, I think another thing that has contributed to the overall watering down of exotic weapons in the game, in my opinion, has its roots in D1 with the Gallahorn. And one thing Bungie really didn't like about that weapon was not necessarily how powerful it was and its drop rate and all that, but was what they didn't like was that it became a requirement for LFG. And they really hated that. Like, don't even bother joining us unless you have the Gallahorn. So they didn't like that have and have nots going on with people trying to get into raids and things like that together. And so I think ever since then, they've been very cautious about making a super powerful exotic that would take on that role of, sort of a price of admission for newer players to get into a raid or whatever. And I think that's kind of overall hurt the system. And it's it's a tough. What do you do to compensate for that, right? To make it. I think I almost half agree. I think you have to do a combination of what Funny Bone is saying with super rare, super good holy grails to achieve for endgame people. I think you need that in the game. You need some holy grail, a holy grail or two out there for people who really want to attack the game hard, the hardcore players, the streamers, the content creators. But you also need accessibility to, the newer and less skilled or casual players as well. And that's the ultimate balance that is, man, it's elusive. It's got to be. There's got to be many conversations that take place amongst the developers at Bungie and the design people that center around that sort of range of availability or that range of design to appease the wide spectrum of players that come to the game.
Yeah, they want people to play, and they want it to be built in to the game to have reasons to play the game. But
right,
it almost feels sometimes like we kind of feel like we need to be incentivized to play the game, and well, why should I even bother doing this new activity if I don't care about the loot that's going to drop? I need to care about the loot so that I can I have a reason to play, and I don't care about the loot if it's not going to be stronger than everything that I have already.
Right.
So I can see why this is how this power creep issue definitely gets out of hand. 6 years, 7 years. We're entering year 7, aren't we, with Beyond Light?
It's amazing. It's hard to believe.
Only
3 more years till the end of Destiny, because isn't it a 10-year franchise? That's what I remember them always saying that. We're in this for 10 years.
That was the contract.
I mean, technically, right? When did When did it originally come out?
2014. 2014.
Yeah.
Fall 2014. And then, after the 10-year mark, which will be, 2004. I'm sorry, 2024. Yeah, I shouldn't have been nipping at Salliebug's medicine there. So, no, in 2024, then they can drop Destiny and go concentrate on their Chinese IP. Right?
Matter.
Fractious Heart mentions more weapons like Divinity that are support. That was really clever. The Divinity is such a clever way of giving everybody a well of radiance, I guess. A real support tool. I really love that gun.
I do too. I like the idea of having guns that have very specific roles to play within your group, right? So you're talking with your fire team and say, okay, I will run Divinity for it to work in tangent with whatever other people are doing, that it adds that level of strategy. So I like those. I'm hoping that, and I know the supers and that's kind of like intrinsically exists within your guardian and what your guardian can do as a subclass, but I do like the idea of different exotic weapons that have a role that worked. Like, I will use this weapon and you can use that weapon and they'll work together
It's so
I mean,
hard to get
yeah.
players to do that on a large scale. I mean, look at what happened.
Yeah, because
look what happened with the Gambit Armor. It was attempting to do that, where we would get together and say, okay, I'm going to do the Reaper, you do the Collector, and blah, 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 and then form this powerful, synergistic team. And they tried that. What are those exotics? The Aeon? Or those...
the Eon Safe, the Eon Flux, and the...
Eon Flux, yeah. It just didn't work. You know, it didn't... I think the closest they've come to it is everybody putting, equipping the Rat Kings. That seems really fun and significant. But even then, people don't. Do you get like Rat King games coming into Crucible or anything?
My question would be: has anyone actually taken a fire team who all had on the Aeons to see whether or not it was worth having that symbiotic relationship of all of those? I feel like it was nobody even ever really tried it out. They looked at it and was like, why am I going to try that over, say, something else? Why would I do the Aeons over using my, my go-to Orpheus Rigs or Dragon Shadow? I don't know. I wonder because I haven't seen any videos. It'd be nice to maybe do a little research and see if any of the content creators have taken a fire team of a bunch of people with Aeons and seen if it had enough of a boost to make it worth it. Because I think that was their idea behind it, but nobody actually did it. So.
I think it was weak sauce.
Yeah, I don't think the amount of boost that it gave was enough.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't worth the sacrifice.
Exactly.
Sooltime, I need to take a short break. You two keep talking. I'll be right back.
I wonder, and maybe somebody in the chat, because I or you, Sooltime, can attest to any World of Warcraft experience or other MMOs about team building, about team crafting, how that really worked in games where Bungie, it feels like they're trying to go in that kind of direction where they, at the very least, reward coordinated teams.
Right. Right.
And I know that part of their initial mission statement was going with this feeling of the public events where you would just be playing the game and you would naturally just encounter other teammates and play with them for a little bit and then kind of go your separate ways.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that design, but it does seem like it kind of runs contrary to this area that we've been discussing where they have tried to experiment with. And we're getting a chat here. The class system in WoW was way more distinct. You could raid in Destiny with 6 Titans, but you needed different classes in WoW.
Oh, you actually needed... Yeah. Well, the other difference to draw a line here is how many people could you have in a raid in WoW versus only the 6 people you have in Destiny. It's apples to oranges here. It's a real different dynamic, I think. And WoW raids, if I've never played WoW myself, maybe a little bit I dabbled with it. Yeah, 25-man raid, Funnybone says. That's huge. I mean, maybe Destiny will get to that point eventually, but right now, when you've only got 6 players, and you also have a culture, I mean, the utopia for Bungie is that everybody's playing with other people. But the reality is I don't know what the percentage is. Bungie probably has a better grip on the statistics. Maybe Reddit has a better grip on the statistics. But I want to say 25% of the players regularly engage in fire teams and do activities in fire teams, whereas 75% are mostly solo. Maybe the odd hookup with a friend or a raid team or something, but like an LFG. But a lot of it seems like they can't get people to not want to be a solo player, and so they have to keep that element in the game. They have to make a game that you can do stuff if you're solo, right?
Yeah, I wonder. I wish that we had somebody in here who could attest to the difficulty of Grandmaster Nightfalls, because that is an activity where team dynamics and team coordination really need to be planned ahead of time.
Well, Salliebug, Ghost, and I tried it. We made a concerted effort to try to get through the Lake of Shadows Grandmaster. And of course, we watched a couple of videos. Fallout had a really good one, and a couple other people did some videos on it and we took the advice, and then we tweaked our own style and loadouts and everything. And it is freaking hard. I mean, we were able to finally get past the bridge in that strike on Grandmaster, only to be greeted with the fact that we took too long and they take away all of your revives at that point. After like 17 minutes, your revives go away. The darkness engulfs you or whatever. And so we couldn't finish it. I think we probably made like 5 or 6 attempts, and we were getting further each time and figuring out how to deal with each encounter as a team. And that was fun. It was really fun because you had to really pay attention to your loadouts. And, at that level of difficulty, your stats matter. All the little stuff starts to add up and matter how you're playing it. And who has what. You have to really communicate with your team, not just beforehand, before going in with your, to complement your loadouts, but you also have to communicate in game what you're doing and what you're seeing and warning each other and so forth. So it was pretty intense, but it was just nerve-wracking because it's not casual at all. It is not casual.
And for a casual player, right? I wouldn't mind giving that a try again. But now that we are in this, this has become kind of like our background casual thing that we do every now and again, as opposed to doing like something that was like an everyday occurrence over the summer. It's like the little bit of time I'm going to probably invest into doing Destiny, do I want to invest into taking on that challenge? Or do I want to continue on in the path that I've been doing, and is like, is there a catalyst I haven't finished yet? Or is there lore that I haven't gotten? I still haven't done any of the ghost traces from the moon, like those things, which are less intense. They're not as intensive. So maybe, it's a matter of just deciding, what you want to do versus the casual experience versus something that's hardcore. Like some people really like that hardcore experience and like that high-end challenge. But I noticed that with the content creators that we did watch, it was challenging, but certainly not challenging to the point that it is for us, so that they can go in and have maybe a less intense experience, I guess is the way I would word it. So. Right.
Yeah. Fractious Heart in the chat brought up how we used several warlocks to beat Garden of Salvation. Well, that was our strategy, and we just didn't want to bother with the bobbing up and down trying to get all the rebuilding part of that raid. And so we found that strategy worked for us, to switch characters. Luckily, we have some other people who have had leveled up warlocks to do that. But if we didn't, we probably could have eventually made it work if we didn't give up, figuring out how to rebuild those islands in that part. Yeah, so I mean, it goes along with any other strategy / cheese in these things. Funny Bone brought up making classes more archetypical. I'm not saying to do this, but for instance, hunters could only use hand cannons and pulse rifles and warlocks. Yeah, that would really be forcing this idea of everybody's a puzzle piece and has to be unique and contribute and work together. That would really be forcing that. And I think they're trying to do that within the context of keeping it soloable, in order to keep it open to solo players as well, So they're still exploring how to get those RPG elements in there, those MMORPG elements in the game, and I think it'll be interesting to see what else they do in Beyond Light in that respect.
I don't know if you touched upon this when I took my little break, but the idea of creating kind of LFG in game and having it be sophisticated, not just an LFG, but sophisticated enough to say, I want to do this raid. This is the experience I'm looking for. I'm a first time player, really want to learn the mechanics versus I just want to run through it to get the triumph. So I'm willing to be just carried through, right? Like some people just say, stand here, we'll do all of this, and then we'll just pull you through, that kind of thing. Like, what kind of experience are you actually looking for? Or are you hardcore and you're looking to do it with a challenge with just like a very specific loadout, that type of thing? So I think I think that would be a beneficial to and add another dynamic to the game anyway. And not just with raids, but I'm sorry.
In getting at a comment that was made in the chat by Funny Bone about how in WoW there are certain archetypes of weapons that can only be utilized by certain classes. That is something that Destiny has experimented with, not only in Destiny 2, but also in Destiny 1. And I wanted to get y'all's take on that while we're still floating around in this area. How did you guys feel about the different swords that were class-specific, and how did y'all feel about the D1 exotic primaries that were class-specific?
Oh, yeah. I feel like they were kind of cool from the sort of identifying and the character identification, self-identifying as a Titan or a Warlock or a Hunter. From that point of view, it was almost like a faction. You got that unique thing to identify with, and it's the identity fantasy, I think. But it's certainly like the swords that were unique to a class, and the other weapons that were unique to a class didn't seem to complement what the other classes were getting, like in any activity or anything like that, like we've been talking about. It was more of sort of like, as a Titan, you get this, and you alone get this, that sort of thing. And I appreciated that. That was fun.
What was the name of that auto rifle? Funny Bone might remember.
The Titan's auto rifle?
Yeah, in D1.
Oh.
Because I know it was a D1. I remember your weapon was the Talaluk. We talked about this recently. And the Hunter's was the Ace of Spades, which they brought back and gave to everybody. it felt very good.
Fabian Strategy, I think it was called.
Fabian Strategy, yep.
Fabian
that was
Strategy.
very the Ace of Spades was very different than the one that we have now, but
right. Yeah, the Fabian Strategy. I love that weapon. It that was the first weapon that forced me to be aggressive, because you were rewarded by just running at your enemy with that thing winding up. And,
right, because it went along with the fantasy of what a Titan is supposed to be.
Yeah. That was a cool weapon. I want that one to come back in Beyond Light.
I did. I gotta say, now that you bring that up,
I loved that weapon.
Stego, and they haven't done this recently, but now that I think about it, I actually really liked that. I liked that it kind of like helped you identify more with the type of, and I think part of the reason that they went away from it is that they wanted the individual to, like, they wanted it to be a little more individualized. Like, they didn't want to dictate to any Guardian what type of player they wanted to be, regardless of what their class was. But I liked that idea of just saying, okay, like you're the gunslinger hunter that's stealthy and fast, and just whip out your gun and shoot it really quickly, whip out your hand cannon, and it kind of goes with that whole last word lore, and so forth. As we found out that wasn't a hunter, though, didn't we? That whole last word lore.
Did you just have a lore
storyline
revelation?
I did.
Yeah,
not a revelation, but I just remembered that
it's why we do this podcast.
Wow, it'd be fun to kind of delve into some lore during like one of these lull times of talking about some of our favorite storylines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, I did like, like the Talalik was like, the Warlock is the magic user, or not that we're all magic users, but like the stand in the back and support, and I don't know, I liked it.
I
did like those weapons, and I would not mind them bringing that back, and even more so, like just
class synergy.
Obviously, you obviously have it with exotics. There are exotic gear that you can only wear because you are that class. Why can't you have a category of those with weapons as well? I like that idea. Yes.
Fractious Heart says, recurring lore segment on the pod? Yes, please. All right.
All right. We will definitely have to pull that in.
I just put it in the suggestion box.
I would totally be up for that.
Yeah.
I love the lore. And
break, you read a story out loud.
Oh, I like that idea too. Oh, speaking of coffee breaks, Sally, did you, Salliebug, did you get your coffee?
I did not. When I took that break, I just went and got myself some water. So.
Oh my gosh. You need to take like a little shot of Robitussin and then get some more coffee in your system as well.
Absolutely. Water, coffee, all of that. So
yeah.
Time for a coffee break, Sooltime.
Well, I just played the coffee break theme. So during somebody's rant, I got up and refilled my coffee recently, so I'm fine. The rest is yours, Salliebug, right. That's in there, so why don't you get it?
All right, I'm going to go get it.
Stego and I will kick off our final segment because we are getting to that time now where we should wrap things up, but I did want to address what came out in This Week at Bungie, the TWAB yesterday. Was it? Oh gosh, you can tell I've had a serious work week here. No, I wanted to talk about the Ghost Shells 2.0, which was announced Thursday in the TWAB. Did you get a chance to see that or hear about that?
I did.
You did. I would be curious what your reaction to that was.
I think that this is a great way to balance the ghosts. That there has been a serious issue with the ghost shells having perks. It mostly is just a bunch of throwaway perks, and then there are 2 that are desirable, and you really have to decide between equipping your ghost shell based on, does it have guiding light, or am I willing to let go of guiding light because I want my ghost shell to look a certain way?
Mm-hmm. I am so happy about this because I think it's long overdue that they're giving the ghost shells a stronger role in your loadout. At the same time, making it more customizable in the sense that you can use your favorite ghost and you can sort of mix and match what you want, perks that you want for that might relate to a certain ghost. So you're creating your own ghost shell fantasies here. Like when I go do this activity, I use this ghost. When I'm doing this other activity, I pull out my Polestar 2 ghost for that activity. So they are giving it energy levels, and just like a piece of armor, it really does work like Armor 2.0. With the exception, of course, of the Generalist shell. They mention a selection of mods will be available, while you have to obtain other ones from various gameplay sources out in the world. And you're guided to where you can get those things just by looking at the different things in collections. Reward loops will not be purchasable from Eververse. You don't hear that phrase often enough. But they are going in that direction. And something, not to go back to our last segment, but something I was thinking about before when we were talking was that they are going in a little bit of a homogenization direction with the classes, in that all 3 classes will have the same grenades. And I can't complain about that, but it is sort of going in the opposite direction of what we were talking about in class diversity. But I think while they're doing that, they're also giving us more customization with our ghosts. So that's cool. They're just, I do like the fact that the game is getting streamlined, yet giving us more depth at the same time, right? That's why I'm such a huge fan of the Aspects and Fragments system. As it stands now, I may hate it when we get our hands on it, but it looks so freaking cool right now. So I love this too. I am so happy to hear about this. It's another thing I'm looking forward to. Honestly, get out those shells that you really like. And I know that Fractious Heart is going to love the example they give here. The bat shell. I don't know how you pronounce it. What's it? Chiropteran shell, maybe?
Something like that.
Something like that. Anyway, it shows it's such a goofy,
the idea
cute
that
shell. So
you can pull out, you can have a ghost based on your mood, as opposed to, I need this ghost because I'm doing this activity.
Right.
That it just becomes part of, and it's awesome. I love that idea. So I can have my Halloween shell, my Halloween themed shells. I think I have that one that is up on the screen right now, the one that's like the bat costume. I think I have a couple of others that are, I'm hoping that they're going to do the same thing with sparrows.
Ooh, right? Why not? Why not?
Because sparrows
I would love that.
Sparrows also have that same thing. Like you end up finding, it's like, I may like the look of this sparrow, but if I don't have transmat preloader on it, I'm not even going to bother.
Can somebody say green exhaust?
Exactly. Remember when you used to be able to buy that from Xur?
Oh yeah, the overdrives or whatever they were. You could buy the different
That
colors.
would be fun if he started selling Sparrow mods.
Oh, I would little stuff like that. I would freak out. That would be so funny and cool and awesome. I love stuff like that. So
I'm hoping that we know they're doing it for ghosts, and I love the idea of I'm doing this activity. I just want to have this ghost out. And you and I had talked about it a little bit, Sooltime, is how I've been kind of ignoring the projections. And I think that's part of the reason why is I'm choosing a ghost based on, and maybe that was like their way of dealing with it. It's like, yeah, you're going to use this ghost because you need to go do something on Mars. So it's going to have like Mars intrinsic perks. But you could always put a projection on that matched your mood. But I like it more that it's going to be way more customizable and more based on kind of like what your mood is. And I'm hoping that they will do something similar with Barrows as well.
Mm-hmm.
That would be super fun.
I personally can say that I am definitely very excited about this change for Ghost Shells. When I got the Shadowkeep Ghost Shell, I put that on, I have not taken it off because it has Guiding Light, and it has the general chest loot locator. So I just couldn't really dedicate any more of my mental capacity to deciding what my ghost shell was. And I like the look of it okay enough that I just didn't mind that was my ghost shell for a year.
I wonder if their data showed that nobody uses anything other than a shell with guiding light on it. Because I can't imagine, why would you not use that? It boosts your XP. You progress faster by having this shell on. So, I mean, there's certain times when you're doing a bounty or something that you have to find so many chests or something where you would switch temporarily, but I would always remind myself I've got to put back on the guiding light when I'm done.
Well, especially since you have the artifact that gives you a boost in light. It gives you a boost based on what level you are. So leveling up, even once you've gotten to max power, you can still max out, like you can still actually increase your power based on the artifact. So leveling up faster is almost a given. Like if you didn't have that power leveling with the artifact, once you got to max power, then you would have other options to use instead of just a guiding light. But now that we have an artifact that gives you a boost indefinitely, why not have that guiding light on all the time? And I'm in agreement with you. I have a few that have guiding light on there, so I might change up based on that, but they all have the guiding light perk and then almost nothing else. So I'm still very curious on whether they're going to still have the artifact or if they're going to let the artifact idea go input and use the aspects and fragments as kind of a replacement to that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's about it. In other words, that's about all I have in me right now. Plus, I have to use the bathroom. So, any final words, Greenstego, from your camp?
Just that I'm excited about the last little bit that gets mentioned in the TWAB, where they are putting a special quest in the game next week to honor a fallen comrade.
Yeah, that's really cool that they are doing that for Matt Helsom from Vicarious Visions. Man, you don't see that done too often.
He must have been.
He must have made an impression on everybody. He must have been a really good guy, right?
Because he he also had a tribute in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, right?
Right. Yeah. There's
found that doing a little bit of research.
They had there's a gymnasium in the world that's named after him. It's like the Matt Helsom Memorial Gym or something. You know, something to that effect.
If you do a little research, and Practice Heart might, and Funny Bone for that matter, he did some of the art and environmental work on both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro.
Wow, talented dude.
Two of the platformers that we enjoyed back in the day. So yeah, it's actually so cool that they're doing something like this, and I'm excited to do that mission, not just because it's something new, but that they're doing it in honor of someone who obviously had a very important part to play in the Destiny world.
And this is just this sort of thing is really the what's great about this game and this community is it's reflected in this sort of thing that they're doing. And I can't wait to jump in. And I think I read somewhere that there's already a new office space in around Anna Bray. That's going to probably most likely be part of this mission that we're going to see. Yeah.
Could be.
All right. I think we're about finished here. Unless anybody has anything else. Yeah.
I'm good.
You're good,
I'm
huh?
excited to maybe get on a little bit today. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, how about we have a sandwich and then get on Destiny? See what's going on.
There you go.
Sounds good.
All
right, y'all.
This coffee break has been brought to you by... Sorry, I put the coffee break up by accident there. Anyway, we'd like to thank everybody, Fractious Heart, Funny Bone, and anybody else who's tuned in to this episode 10 of the Paracasual Destiny Podcast. Look for us on Twitter at ParacasualP and on our YouTube channel where we broadcast live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Please consider a like, subscribe, or comment on Twitter or YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Send us a question or a comment. And have a terrific weekend and an even better week. Bye.
Bye.